Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Storied Church podcast. My name is Jason, and I'm so glad you are here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen. If you're new and this is your first time here with us, I really hope you find your time with us meaningful. We would love to meet you and get to know you, and you can find a couple of ways to do that on our website at storiedchurch.org. It's storied, S-T-O-R-I-E-D, church.org, or you can find us on social media, and we would love for you to follow us on Instagram and or Facebook at Storied Church. We hope that our sermons and our ruminations are thoughtful and meaningful reflections that help us take our next steps together on our journey. Enjoy. Today I'm going to read our passage, and you should have got this card. I hope you'll take this. Old-fashioned words on a piece of paper that you will take with you during your week to reflect on. It's the Psalm of the week during Advent, and been encouraging us to keep our Advent simple and to reflect on these words. But I'm going to read this psalm at the end instead of the beginning today. When I first came to North Carolina, moved here from Florida. I was a youth minister at a church in Durham called Pleasant Green. And like most churches, this church has been around for hundreds of years. And it was in Durham, and it's kind of like on the edge of a rural community, and then the bustling metropolitan of Durham, and how it is growing, and the church is trying to adapt in this new world it was living in. Something was new about this church for me is that I wasn't used to going to the church, and like the first thing you saw was the graveyard. When you like drove in, it was like this huge graveyard, and then the church, and then my office window. I had a great view of dead people. It was this is. What I thought was weird was for people that went to this church for generations was like, this is normal. This is what we experience all the time. And I got to meet some of the people who had gone to that church years earlier, and who had since, after they built a new sanctuary and they moved out of the chapel, or the chapel that was the church, some of those people that went to the church stopped going because it just wasn't the same as it was when they were growing up. And one of these people was named Jane, and I remember standing in the cemetery one day, and Jane was in her 80s, and she was just kind of disillusioned, not by church, but just about the movement from this. It was no longer the church that she grew up in. And we were having a conversation in the cemetery where her family is buried. And this particular cemetery didn't really have a lot of value and meaning for me. It kind of felt, I didn't say it, but this is different. And I don't know if it's a good way or a bad way. It's kind of the thing that you don't ask when you go to when a new church is like, what's their cemetery like? And so we're standing there, and she goes, "This is sacred ground we're standing on." And part of me just kind of, is it? This particular ground is sacred, like it's sacred to you, but is it like sacred to everybody in general? That just short question has stuck with me, is what makes something sacred? Many of us have been taught or absorbed that the church building, for which we do not have, and grounds are a sacred space. Therefore, we should be particularly careful how we behave and speak. You should not, of course, curse in the Lord's house. And that was always particularly odd to me. Or like people would bring their kids in, and like all of a sudden, like your kids could be crazy out there, but then when your kids come in this space, it's like, don't run around the chancel. No. And if you know what that word is, like the inner sanctum, like you can't do that. No. That's sacrilegious. It's a sacred space. Don't run in it. And I might be stepping on some sacred stones right now. Excuse me for that. And some people treat me like that, as a reverend. I can't tell you how many times when somebody curses in front of me, they go, sorry. And I'm like, what are you sorry for? I didn't catch, what did you say? What was that? Can you say it again? Just make sure it's a little longer this time so it's clear to my ears how horrible of a human being you are. And because reverend, revere, sacred, and it really calls into question, to me, what makes something sacred? Like, is there particular spaces that I could behave differently than this space? Or is this just the illusion that I create? Because we say God is everywhere, but then sometimes God is just somewhere. Welcome to my brain. And so I asked this particular question of our own journey together, because we're a nomadic church right now in our journey. We don't have an established sanctuary, and so what makes a space sacred? I can remember growing up as a child, laying in the church pew, listening to the preacher preach that sounded like Charlie Brown, or just whoop, 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 like fidgeting, scribbling on the bulletin with those little bitty pencils with no erasers. And I think about my own kids' experience of church. Like I don't think Isaac even remembers. I was a pastor of 2 rural churches before I started Storied Church, and I don't think Isaac has really any recollection of those two churches. And I think about my kids' experience. They probably don't know what a pew is or bulletin. My kids have worshiped in coffee shops. They've worshiped in playgrounds during the pandemic. And any playground that we've worshiped at, they've always called, there's the church playground. We've worshiped in old schoolhouses. We worshiped in a place called the Historic Woodlawn School. Every time we drive by there, they go, there's our church. We drive by this space, they go, there's our church. This is not a museum to them. This is a church. I come to realize and appreciate all places, all experiences, all moments that we share, the conflict, the heartache, the laughter, the joys, all those things, the cursing, are sacred. Everything is sacred because everything has been ordained by God. And our time in this space has, many of you, this is not the church that we started in here with. And that's such a beautiful thing. We've been in this space for a little over 2 years. Right there you see, that's a blurry picture, but that was our first Sunday here. This is pandemic. That guy is so cool. See him here?
Yep.
Playgrounds. That was our coffee shop, little room that we had. Everything is sacred. This space is sacred not because Storied Church was here, but because everything is sacred. And because of that special grace, we celebrate relationships that have been formed, stories and narratives that have been connected, bonds, epiphanies that we have experienced on our journey together. We've experienced it at dinner tables, coffee shops, restaurants, but none of those moments are absent of the sacred. Every single one of those moments is sacred, where the church is embodied. Richard Rohr said this. He said, "We don't have to go to sacred places to pray or wait for holy days, for good things to happen. We can pray always, and everything that happens is potentially sacred if we allow it to be. Once we can accept that God is in all circumstances, and that God can and will use even bad situations for good, then everything becomes an occasion for good and an occasion for God. This is the day God has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." I've been thinking this week, there's a part of me that I'll be completely honest, I struggle with the absence of not having a space. Because there is a legitimacy to that of like, we celebrate churches that have started and then they have a building and then we go, look at this. And I'm like, well, can you move your chairs the way you want to move your chairs? Oh, yes. I'm like, oh, well, we can't. But there's also something beautiful is that I think in being a nomadic people, maybe not forever, but for a season, and that season might be long, is that we carry the stories and we continue the stories that we hold in Scripture. There was a majority of time in Scripture where the people had no place. Jesus. I mean, everywhere that guy did something spectacular was not in the high steeple or the synagogue. It was in the everyday, on-the-way place. And so I gravitate and I hold those things close. That the sacred outpouring of God's Spirit is captured not in this sermon or in our singing, but it's in those moments before and it's in those moments after. It's in the celebration of the relationships that are connected. As we all transition from a church to a new space, there is one picture, and I've been thinking, oh, you don't have to go to it yet, Louise. There's one picture I want to classify it as I struggled all week is whether to share this with y'all because it is so personal and special to me. But sometimes there's personal special things to me that aren't so personal and special to you. And so I always have to take these okay, is this more about me and what I want to say? But I came to the conclusion yesterday, I want to share this picture with you that I took. Oh, it's going to make me cry. Dang it. I took this picture of Isaac a few months ago. He sets up.
That's okay. You'll make us all quiet. Sacred space.
But yeah, Isaac's my son, by the way. I probably should share that information. But I took this picture of him a few months ago, and I was captured by how he was setting everything up so just wonderful. And here's this 5-year-old, and he's doing these beautiful. And I feel like this picture was so emblematic of this season in this community and this church. Because when we came into this space 2 years ago, I think we were just trying to form a community. And we didn't really know. And as you saw in that first week, we're all wearing masks. And a lot of people came and gone, not because they hated the community, but a lot of people just moved away. This is a city that you come in and you leave. And as I looked at this picture, one of my biggest struggles is that as a church, as you might realize, we set up all of this and we take it down. And in the first few months, sometimes it would just be me setting up. And I don't discount that there weren't people committed, I wouldn't ask for help or whatnot. But in those moments, I felt so alone. Because it would like ebb and flow. COVID would come back, and then I don't feel comfortable coming to church anymore. And so it's like, all right, how do I preach a sermon to like 4 people? And I did. But then Isaac started coming with me. And I wasn't alone anymore. And then people started showing up to help set up. And he would do the, what does he call it? Sanitizer? And this picture to me represents community. That we're together on this journey. The space doesn't matter to me. It's what this space has taught us and what it's formed is that we're together. The space also represents inclusion. It's not a picture of adults smiling, holding each other. It's a picture of a kid who isn't just tossed to the side to be taught Noah's Ark, which there's value in teaching our kids biblical stories. But he's included in our life together. He is a part, and that's emblematic of our children in general. I will never forget, even though there is a part of me that wants church to go right. I want the music to go right. I want the slideshow to go right. There's a part of me that wants all that. But a few weeks ago, before the church was even over, during that day, the kids were taught like how they can be a part of our journey together. And they started bringing in they got the signs and they started bringing them in before church ended. And I was like, oh no, this is we're telling people to leave. And then Isaac is in the back, his hand is on the switch. And we don't have a lighting system, obviously, but we tried to set the mood by turning off a couple lights, and Isaac just turned on the lights. And it's it's time to leave. It was holy chaos, but it was beautiful because our kids feel like they are part of this church. They don't just feel like that they're tossed to the side. They feel like they are a part. And this is emblematic, I hope, of every person in this room, that you walk into the space and you feel like you are a part of this community, that you have something to offer to this church, that you have something to give. And that makes this table in our lives more beautiful. This picture also represents intentionality. Is that we want the space to feel welcoming when people come in. When I looked over, as I said that Sunday, my child, I am a very clean person. I don't like stuff. But my child will leave. He'll get one thing out. 5 minutes later, it's another thing. 5 minutes later, it's another thing. And then I'm got a pack of cigarettes over there I can't do this. I can't do this. And I'm how am I going to run the vacuum? I'm just and I looked over to Isaac setting up the stuff. And it was just so organized and beautiful. And I thought about intentionality, how we cultivate this space for people to come in, and that's not representative of just Isaac. That's representative of this church and the intentionality that goes into the prayers around the flags and the stickers and the coffee. All those things, I feel like, are sacred things that offer to people hospitality as they walk into this space. And last, it represents service. It represents our willingness to pour ourselves out for one another and serve one another. It represents our deep care. I don't have an argument for church as to, I don't fault anybody that wants a church that they want to walk into, and it's a large church, and the production is beautiful and amazing, if that's the kind of church you love. But this is the kind of church that when your life goes to crap, I can tell you that people are going to be there for you. You're not going to disappear. You're not going to be invisible. This church will be there for you. They will advocate for you. They will be on your side. They will serve you. They will pour their hearts out for you. And that picture holds all those things for me. I don't know if I'll ever have an office per se, like an office in another place other than my house. But this picture is going to be really big on the wall, because this picture to me represents the sacred journey of this community. Today we light the Advent candle of joy. A short story about the pink candle is when I first came to North Carolina, I knew nothing about Advent wreaths. And I found a bunch of candles that were 3 purple and 1 pink candle, and I thought, that's not right. I'm supposed to have 4 purple candles, and I threw them away. And then later they came and say, anybody know where our Advent candles are? I was like, yeah, there's like 3 purple and 1 pink. They got it wrong. So I threw them away. And they're like, one of them is supposed to be pink. I was like, oh. That's how I learned. The Advent candle joy is pink. Brene Brown teaches that the pathway to joy is the practice of daily gratitude, the recognition of the gift of every moment that we share. It is a struggle to think that only some places and some moments are sacred. But I also believe the pathway to joy is recognizing that every moment is sacred in the everyday, ordinary moments. This doesn't diminish more sacred places to us or sacred acts like baptism and communion. I actually believe these holy actions shine a great light onto that every moment is sacred, that we take ordinary elements like bread, water, and juice, and we say that these are deeply meaningful, sustenant gifts to us. Simple conversations, deep conversations. A warm embrace. Did anybody get a warm embrace this morning?
Yes.
I didn't. I'm just kidding. That was a gift. That was a gift. A conversation, a sacred gift. A hand on the shoulder, a gift. The beginnings of a friendship. In a moment, the Israelites always marked a transition by laying rocks. I want to invite us and our children to take a rock. As we transition to our next moment on our journey, our next storyline, our next narrative, I would like for you to take a rock to celebrate the many sacred moments that you've had, or just the one today, as an enduring act of God's presence with us today. Our psalm today comes from Psalm 126. As I mentioned last week, the Psalms is composed of 5 books, and most of these books are lamenting prayers, meaning prayers that people that prayed pretty angry and frustrated with God. But their discipline in that prayer life is that they always ended with the doxology. God, you're pretty good. I celebrate you, God. When you get to the end of the Psalms, everything is a doxology. It's just one large doxology, and that's where our psalm today comes from. And I think it captures our journey to this moment and will carry us to our next story. Psalm 126. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with shouts of joy. Then it was among the nations. The Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we rejoiced. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like the water courses in Negeb. May those who sow in tears reap with shouts of joy. Those who go out weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, carrying their sheaves. And all God, this is the word of God for us, the people of God. Amen. I want to invite us, if you would like to take a moment to reflect, feel like you have something residing within you, take a few moments to. And we want to thank you for listening today to the Storied Church podcast. We really hope that we get to meet you soon. And again, you can visit us at storiedchurch.org, or you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We hope that you have a wonderful week, and we hope to meet you soon. Hi everyone, it's Jason again, and before you go today, I just wanted to take one moment of your time. Maybe you are a regular attender at Storied Church, or somebody that has found our podcast and you're just listening and you find it valuable. I just want to ask a huge favor. Our church is located in North Carolina, Alamance County, and we are one of the only open and affirming, reconciling, progressive, whatever word you want to label on that church here in Alamance County. And so we're just a really important voice of hope in this place. Every organization, including ours, takes funding. And the church has changed, and so we're trying to be creative in our funding. But I know it's a different ask, that especially if you don't live here in North Carolina. But if you would support us or consider supporting us with a one-time gift or even a monthly gift, it would mean the world. And thank you so much for even considering. You can give by going to storiedchurch.org/give. I hope you do. We would love your partnership and your friendship. Thanks again.